Thank you for watching this video. I'm going to show you how to use the Hereditas CLI to build a digital legacy box and deploy that. The first thing you need to know is that Hereditas is a static website generator. Because of that, we have a dependency on two external services, which are both free and very easy to set up. The first thing we need is to set up an Auth0 account. Auth0 is an identity provider, and it offers a free service, which is more than enough for what we need. Go to auth0.com and create a free account, then sign in. Once you're in the dashboard, create a new application and name it API Access. This application will be used by the Hereditas CLI and the rules that we create inside Auth0 to interact with the Auth0 provider and make some changes and configure everything for ourselves. So let's create an app and let's choose type machine-to-machine app. Let's press create. And then let's grant access to the Auth0 management APIs. We need to select some scopes. In particular, we need to enable for clients, read, update, and create clients. Then we need to select something for rules, meaning read rules, update, delete, and create rules, and also update rules configs. Let's authorize this app. And now we have created an API access app. And under settings, we can see the domain, the client ID, and the client secret. We'll need those values in a moment. The next thing we need is a service that allows us to create a webhook to send notifications when someone logs into your Hereditas box. Any provider that supports webhooks could work. A nice one is IFTTT, which is free and it's simple and it integrates already with hundreds of different services. After creating an account for IFTTT, go under My Applets, Services, and then enable the webhook service. I've done it already, but I still need to open a documentation in another tab. We'll need that in a moment. Then go back to My Applets and let's create a new applet. As a trigger, we're going to choose webhook and then choose receive a web request. We'll type event name Hereditas login and create the trigger. Then we choose what happens after that. You can literally choose between hundreds of options. My favorite one is Telegram. So IFTTT will send me a message on Telegram. I've already configured that and I just need to set the value, which will be value 1 only. Let's press create action. And then let's disable receiving notifications when the applet runs, otherwise we'll get notified twice. Finish. This is it. Now we are ready to go ahead and start building our application. As a first step, we need to install the Hereditas CLI. Hereditas is a Node.js application, so it requires Node.js installed in your machine, at least version 10 or higher. Then you can install Hereditas from npm with npm install -- global Hereditas. I've already executed this command, so I'm going to save us some time and skip it for now. Next, we can create a folder, which will be the Hereditas working directory. So let's make a new folder. I'm calling it Hereditas and getting into the folder. In here, we can run we can use the Hereditas CLI to initialize this folder so it becomes an Hereditas working directory. And we can do that with the Hereditas init command. This command requires a few options, in particular auth0 domain, which we're going to get from the auth0 management portal, auth0 client ID, and also the auth0 client secret. Lastly, we need to put a URL, which is where the application will be deployed to. I don't know which one is the URL right now, but I'm going to put localhost, which is where we're going to use our local server to test the application. Localhost 5000. After running this, our folder will now contain 3 different items. A content folder, which is where I'm going to put the content that I want encrypted. A dist folder that will contain the encrypted application and the static application, and a configuration file called hereditas.json, which should not be used by unless you're an advanced user. So I'm going to put some content inside the Hereditas content folder, and I've created that before, so I'm just going to copy that from my desktop and put it in the content folder. At this point, we need to continue the configuration of Hereditas. The first thing we need to do is to configure the webhook with the address that we created before. So we use the Hereditas CLI and use Hereditas webhook set and then the URL for our webhook. Let's go back to the documentation for IFTTT and let's type here the name of the event, and let's copy this URL from here. Done. At this point, we can use the Hereditas CLI to configure all changes that we made into Auth0 and make sure that Auth0 is completely configured for the way we need it for Hereditas. Let's type Hereditas Auth0 sync. This should take just a few moments. And now, if I go under Auth0 in the management portal, I can see that a new application has been created for me, and it's managed by the Hereditas CLI, and that I also have some rules that have been created. In particular, whitelisting users, sending me notifications, and also implementing the wait logic. All of this is all created and managed for us automatically, so we don't need to do anything. One important thing that you might want to check manually, however, is the connection tab. Under connection, check social connections and enable whichever services you want to use. Google is enabled by default, but you can also enable Facebook, Microsoft, and others, as long as they provide an email address, which means that suddenly we cannot use Twitter, for example. Under database, Auth0 by default enables a username and password authentication database. This can be a bit confusing for our users because if they can't get into the application, otherwise they see the option to create a new account. So you might want to disable that and turn it off for your Hereditas application. And this is the only thing that you need to do manually. Okay, let's go back to our app. At this point we are ready and we can just run Hereditas build, and this will generate our HTML5 application. We need to provide a user passphrase. This is part of the encryption key, and this is the value that you need to give to your users. It can be anything you want, as long as it's more than 8 characters, and a good idea could be to use a few words in your native language. Hello world is a terrible passphrase, but I'm going to use it just for the example. This should take around a few seconds, and after that, we can see that our dist folder contains now the static HTML5 application, JavaScript, CSS files, and also the encrypted files containing our content and the encrypted index file as well. At this point, we just need to do one last thing, which is configure which users are allowed to use the Hereditas application. So we can do that again with the Hereditas CLI, with Hereditas user add, type the email address of the user. In this case, I have two users. The first one is owner at demo.hereditas.app, and this person will be an owner. So whenever they log in, they're able to unlock the box at any single time without having to wait for the timer. Then I'm adding another user with another email address. At this point, if I add the Hereditas user list, I will see my two users. I need to run again the sync command, so the list of authorized users is synchronized with Auth0. Done. At this point, we're ready to test the app. For now, we're going to test the app locally. So I'm going to use a development server. You can choose whatever static web server you want, but a good option could be using the serve npm package. npx serve contents from the dist folder. And now I can just type this URL into my browser. And here I am redirected to Auth0, and it's asking me to sign in with my Google account. In this situation, I'm going to sign in with my owner email address and confirm this. And since I'm the owner, I'm able to unlock the box at any time. I just need to type the passphrase, which is hello world. And here it is. I can see my markdown file has been converted into HTML, so I can read what's inside. I have also text files, for example, with passwords, and I can also add attachments, for example, my Bitcoin key, which I can click on here to download it. I can, of course, add photos, and you can see them here displayed on the screen. One thing you will notice is that as soon as I authenticated into the Hereditas box, I have received a notification. This happened thanks to the webhook that triggered IFTTT command that sent me the message on Telegram. In this case, it's telling me that the owner logged in, so it's all good. But if someone else had logged in that is not an owner, then I could take action and block them. Okay, so this is all done. I've stopped my test server, and the very last step that I want to do is to deploy the website and the static HTML application into somewhere so other users can check it as well. You can choose whatever static static hosting provider you want. One option is, for example, to use Azure Blob Storage. I've already created an Azure account, so I'm just going to type some commands and deploy my application. First thing, I'm going to set some configuration variables into my shell, and then I'm going to create an Azure resource group and also an Azure storage account. For this, I'm just going to copy paste some commands. The first command creates an Azure resource group, which is just a logical grouping unit. And the second one creates a storage account where I'm going to put all my static HTML5 application, and then the storage account will serve it to users throughout a normal web browser. By default, storage accounts do not support static website hosting, so I do need to run one extra command to enable that. And here it is. The first command will enable static website hosting, and the second one will just show what is the URL of my website. So let's copy this URL, and then let's enable it inside the Hereditas application. So I'm going to use the Hereditas CLI again, and I'm going to type Hereditas URL add, and then type this URL in here. If I type Hereditas URL list, you will see that the application is allowed to run on localhost and on Azure Blob Storage. After doing this, I need to run the command again to synchronize the changes. And after this is done, we can actually deploy our application so it's available on Azure. This is uploaded on my files, and now if I just copy this URL, and again, I'm here redirected to Auth0 to authenticate. I'm going to use the same Google account, and here I am. I can just type my password again and see all the content that I was looking at before when I was browsing on localhost. Except this time, the content is available on the internet, and anyone can browse it.